Okay, and I think it has started. Okay, we got some people from Uruguay, Iraq. Hello. Okay, awesome. So, a big welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining our 5th Phoenix Crypto chapter meetup. I am super excited because this meeting had the most RSVPs ever. We had 165, which is just the most I've had by far. So thank you, everyone. Great time to be interested in crypto. The last couple days, hours, weeks, months have just been insane. So definitely a good time to get interested in this space. So today we will have a Q&A and conversation with Brendan, our lovely guest here. He's a crypto investor and participant, and so we'll be able to talk about a little bit about what he does in the space and also just sort of pick his brains about what's going on now because things are changing super quickly. So, all right, here's our agenda for this meeting. I'll just give you all a quick overview of what the Phoenix Crypto chapter is so you know a little bit more about us. I'll do a quick intro, read you Brendan's bio, ask some beginning questions, and then we'll have a good amount of time for Q&A from you guys. So if you have any questions at all, please just drop them in the chat or just let us know you want to ask a question and I can enable your video and microphone so you can do it that way. And then last couple minutes, we'll wrap up. And then for everyone who's attending, if you don't already have the Codecademy Pro account, I have a 20% discount for you. So definitely stick around so you can get that. And with that, I'll just jump into just an overview of what our Phoenix Crypto chapter is. So as you can see in the logo here, we're actually part of the Codecademy chapter network. There's chapters all across the world at this point. There's so many, and we are the Phoenix Crypto one. But as I said before, we're not just based in Phoenix. The meetings are open to everyone because they're just online. And basically, we are a group of people who are super interested and passionate about the crypto space and really optimistic about it as well. So as a caveat, we don't give out investing advice or anything like that. We're more just interested in all the new things that are happening so quickly, all the technical developments. So really, it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or you've been, holding Bitcoin for years. It doesn't matter. We're just a really fun space to talk about this. You can find us on Twitter. Our handle is Phoenix_crypto. And you can also go to our Codecademy chapter page that has all of our upcoming events. It's got our blog on there. If you sign up to join our chapter, you'll get our Crypto Courier newsletters. So yeah, super, super awesome group. And it's pretty new, but interest has definitely been here. And I also wanted to show you, so in addition to our chapter page, we also have sort of a chapter hub on Notion. Notion is just a note-taking app, and if you follow the link that's in the presentation, it'll take you to our chapter hub. This is just another place to find a lot of resources, so our chapter page, Discord, Twitter. If you have any meeting topics, you can submit them in this Google form, and then just a ton of more crypto resources geared towards beginners, and also our previous meeting presentations, got a meeting calendar. And if you're so inclined, you can add a member bio here. I've got mine, got Nikhil's, and you can add yours here. So just wanted to point this out. I'll be sending a meeting recap with these links as well. So definitely join the community. It's the place to be. So, okay, club member bios. Also want to point out we have a Discord chat as well. You have to join the main Codecademy server, and then there'll be a Phoenix Crypto channel. And that's just another place for our community to sort of get together, share relevant resources, articles, and what have you. So, okay, let's go back. And okay, with that, we will start our conversation with Brendan, a crypto investor and participant. I'll just sort of give you the rundown of his bio real quick, and then we'll go into our questions. So Brendan's formal background is studying public policy and economics, actually, with the BA in policy studies. And his background is mostly in healthcare as a policy advisor since 2014, actually. But along with that, he's been managing his personal money in multiple asset markets since 2016, including stocks, commodities, derivatives, and as of 2017, cryptocurrencies. He's done a lot of additional education, including online trading academy, Optionetics, and he's had a variety of professional mentors. And his current studies include coding with Codecademy. He's done courses with Ivan on Tech Academy. He's done some courses on real estate investing with Rich Dad Company, Austrian economics, and complex trading strategies. So I think that about covers it. But to kick us off, Brendan, I'm really curious. How did you initially get into cryptocurrencies?
Well, thank you for the introduction. And yeah, initially I think I got into it sort of just by chance. I was looking for kind of exceptional investment returns around the year maybe 2017. Bills were getting harder to pay because of this thing I
Mhm.
started learning about firsthand called inflation. And that's when I kind of heard about crypto because it was coming into that bull market phase, and I was sort of totally ignorant to what was going on, and then stumbled into like the top of that bull market and then got to sort of cut my teeth on the crypto winter that followed. So that's really, in a nutshell, nothing too fascinating other than just purely chance and sort of in the right place at the wrong time.
Great. Yeah, I think 2017 is when a lot of people got into like the first sort of big wave of crypto enthusiasts. So it's awesome. So along with that, who are your go-to crypto experts or gurus that you look to for advice then, and maybe some ones that you look to for advice now?
Yeah, well, before, what I was doing was sort of uh, really burning the midnight oil, doing my own research, quite a lot of it, and up all night, sort of scanning through emerging projects. And the space has evolved and changed so much, and so have the narratives that I don't think that what worked then works now. So I've sort of changed going forward and settled on some sources that I consider, credible in the space, and they're pretty well known. But I think Real Vision is trustworthy with Raoul Pal, and I consider them a really good source for sort of take into the institutional world of institutional sort of side of things, because that's really important because that's a huge
Mhm.
driver right now of this whole big bull cycle we're coming into. And then Ivan on Tech, another real sort of go-to for me. I've signed up for their academy, and I think it's pretty worthwhile just if you're looking to learn more about developing the code aspects, because I'd like to learn more about app development and decentralized app development. So Ivan on Tech has a lot of courses pertaining to development as well. Um, I also like Anthony Pompliano. I think he's worth following. Really smart guy, knows a lot about technology. Came in around 2017 and has really put his money where his mouth is, and has some great arguments. Sort of, he's a Bitcoin maximalist in my opinion, but still, he's really good to listen to. Then also Andreas Antonopoulos. Um, really good for Bitcoin as well. And then when it comes to sort of the retail investing side of things, I have to back up Tika Tuari. He's been spot on. I mean, he has a public publication called Palm Beach Daily, I believe, and it's free. And I think a lot of good information makes its way into there.
Okay, great. Yeah, related to sort of what you said before, I actually found this website called pompcryptojobs.com, and it's that person he made an entire website with all like crypto-centric jobs like Coinbase, Gemini, just like all these things. So if anyone's interested in getting a crypto job, I would recommend going there. So awesome. Okay. And I'm really curious about what excites you most about blockchain technology and I guess the future of cryptocurrencies in general.
Yeah, well, I think for me, it's the sort of decentralization and disintermediation part of it. I think that's sort of inseparable from the whole thing, and kind of the potential for some really radical social transformation that comes with that. Reorganizing and experimenting with new sort of modes of consensus and governance in real time. Because we've got Bitcoin, which is kind of the money revolution, and decentralizing finance, into Ethereum is sort of building out this world computer platform. But yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of bigger than that in terms of this is going to disrupt basically everything on some level, is what it's starting to look like.
Mhm. Definitely. I was listening to a podcast with Michael Saylor yesterday with Laura Shen, and he was saying that, when people discovered cars, it's not like they just went back to the horse and buggy, right? They were like, "Oh, this thing is so much better. We're going to start using this now." So he used that analogy to compare it to cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and blockchain. It was like, yeah, like now that we have this, he was saying like there's no way we're going to go back to this old system because it just doesn't make sense. So when he said
Yeah,
that, it kind of clicked with me.
So some haters have come around, like Mark Cuban and whatnot, and now they're talking about how the disruptors always win, and they're right about that. And
Mhm.
it's interesting to see sort of that flip now. So much has happened even in just the last couple of weeks. Everything from just this morning, Bank of New York, Mellon saying that they were going to support crypto. Mastercard saying that they're going to support it.
Really? Okay,
Uh,
I did not hear that.
yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. So, and then you have Elon Musk putting 1.5 billion of Tesla's money into it and saying they're going to
Yep.
accept it for Teslas and hold it. So, I mean, that's
Mhm.
just in the last week alone.
Yeah, that still blows my mind really. And we're gonna get into that for sure, all these recent events and how it's just moving at such a quick speed. It's like, as I said before, I first started studying this only like beginning of October, and from then to now, it's a totally different world. It's like what even happened? But okay, great. And sort of related to that, I know you and I had emailed about this before, but could you review or go over the different sectors and highlight some of the crypto innovations that are happening within those sectors?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's I guess from a top-down view, if we want to break it down, you kind of have, like I said, Bitcoin is sort of the original. It's the money revolution, and it's its own thing. I don't think there's ever going to be another Bitcoin. It's one of a kind. Nothing else can really compete for what it's actually good for its use case, and has the first mover advantage for network effects. So I think you look at sort of the money revolution and the store of value kind of decentralization of central banking being Bitcoin, Ethereum sort of being the first idea to build out the world kind of computer, Web3, decentralizing the web infrastructure because the internet's become really centralized actually.
Mhm.
So to pull its servers out and build out a whole tech stack infrastructure that's going to be fully decentralized, that's kind of what I think Ethereum started, and it's far and away the most robust ecosystem at this point. It's got about close to 3,000 applications or decentralized applications being built on it. So just about every use case for something you can think about, Ethereum seems to have some project working on it, and it spans the gamut from security-like things to totally non-security, fully utility tokens. And that's where I think things start to get a little more complicated because right now in the whole digital asset space, there isn't a lot of clarity on what
Mhm.
actually constitutes a security or not. And so that's one of the big regulatory hurdles holding everything back because really the legitimization of this new asset class and of digital assets is where we're going, and
Mhm.
you would never know it if you listened kind of to the mainstream news and Janet Yellen and all the talking heads, because there's really this interesting thing going on where in the mainstream media they're trying to really talk negatively about it, and
Mhm.
this whole price run up is sort of like a big surprise. But it's being driven by institutions, and if you look at the institutional and regulatory side of things, it's all fairly positive, and a lot of progress is being made. So it looks like we kind of have a roadmap towards it being legitimized going forward into 2022,
Mhm.
where we're going to get hopefully some clarity on what actually constitutes a security or not. And then beyond that, we can get into sort of, well, for stuff that is and is not a security, how are we then going to deal with all of the stuff involving fiduciary responsibilities?
Mhm.
Because
Taxes.
yeah, and particularly like the sort of thing of like broker responsibilities and advisor responsibilities, stuff like custody. Um, they basically have some pretty high standards they need to adhere to, and right now that
Mhm.
infrastructure isn't there. So institutions, still a lot of the more conservative ones can't participate, even though they might want to. So we're seeing a lot of the more aggressive ones jump on as first movers, but I think there's
Mhm.
more to come once we can have assurances about what's going to happen if one of your counterparties goes belly up, and now how are we going to settle the debt creditor relationship basically.
Mhm. I think there is a lot of strides being made in that, like MicroStrategy's Bitcoin for Corporations event, where they just sort of made that open to everyone. I think that helps a lot. But for sure, it's like if you're a corporation, are you gonna list your Bitcoin as property, like as intangible asset, or is it gonna be an investment? Because then it's totally different. That affects you in different ways. So yeah. Someone made a comment. Gas fee is a big issue at the moment, I think. And I just want to say, yes, I tried to transfer some Ethereum the other day, and it was costing me like $400 to move like clearly a fraction of that. So I was like, man, that is insane. But Yeah, thank you. That was definitely a great overview of sort of what's happening right now and how things are just moving really quickly. So I noticed that you sent out the links to your articles in the chat. So did you want to review those real quick?
Yeah, those are just in there for anybody's interest. In terms of the first one was written in early December because I was kind of rushing to get something together for this trading group here, and basically I got caught totally off guard by how fast this all moved. It just kind of like once we broke past 20,000, which was obviously like a key breakout level, it's just
Mhm,
exploded the whole space. So I think what we're seeing is like FOMO, total fear of missing out from big money. This time it's not
mhm,
just the average retail guy. Like big money starting to worry that I think they're going to be late to this party. So it's pushing things in a totally different way. And then we also have like sort of a macroeconomic condition going on globally that's really unique because it's kind of the first time things have been this way globally, maybe in history. And that's really an amenable climate to the value proposition for what Bitcoin presents. So there's that, and that article kind of covers it a little bit for anybody who wants a total macro bird's eye view of the stuff in a little more detail. And then the other link is just a referral link because I would be remiss to talk about any of this without mentioning the risks. And basically, first of all, just long story short, if I talk about any projects in specific or assets, anything like that. It's case study purposes. It's not a solicitation to buy or sell anything. And just short version, if you're considering buying or selling anything, you should talk about it with your registered investment advisor or broker or other qualified professional. And so, yeah, we were really just looking at education purposes and case studies. And so, getting into the nitty gritty of trading, it's risky business. Trading alone has a lot of risks. Learning you can lose quite a bit of money. And so I suggest anybody who's serious about that actually pursues a proper financial education and through a credible resource. And cryptocurrency comes with even more risks on top of that, just because it's a nascent asset class and isn't legal clarity on a lot of matters. Like if you use DeFi, decentralized finance applications, or something even like BlockFi, you're not FDIC insured. So if you lose that money, you might not have legal recourse. And there's just user error, learning curve, technological risks. You can send your stuff to the wrong address. You can get hacked.
mhm,
So I mean, like, there's just a lot of stuff you should learn about if you're going to go dig into it in any serious, meaningful way. And so, that link is just for a group I consider credible when it comes to trading education. At probably reasonable cost based on what the industry is like. And so that's just there for anybody who has any interest in pursuing that. So that's the purpose of those links.
Okay, great. Yeah, I always tell people that if you want to start trading crypto, it's almost like like taking a college class, you really have to understand what you're doing, or else, you can lose just a lot of money. So, awesome. That's it for sort of our intro questions. So if anyone has any questions, please drop them in the chat or just DM one of us and let us know that you want to use your microphone and your camera. Um, Oops, just click something. So while we're waiting for those questions to come in, I had some questions for you as well, Brendan.
Mhm.
Um, we talked about this one before, but I just think it's super cool. So, what are the most promising crypto projects or initiatives that you've heard of?
Yeah, and so I mean, I guess I'll talk about a couple of things that I think are interesting. I mean, promising, sure, from certain aspects, but definitely interesting. I think these things might go on to be sort of, you know, features in the cryptocurrency space that people talk about. And I mean, the interesting thing, I guess, to begin with in terms of value is adoption is value in crypto. Like when it comes to evaluating this asset space, that's another thing that's up in the air.
Mhm,
Is actually trying to figure out how do we make sense of what these things are worth. And part
mhm,
of the explosion in prices and the crazy volatility is price discovery and people trying to make sense of what these things are actually worth. And
mhm,
to me, what drives value, the most compelling, valuation case is adoption, basically network effects like
mhm,
Metcalfe's law,
mhm,
and that seems to be ubiquitous with all tech. And so this is sort of a thing where we're having, a network effect, kind of just like with Codecademy, in a way. So it's interesting to watch. And
mhm,
one that I kind of have my eyes on, and disclosure I do hold is Polkadot, and that's Gavin Wood who did Ethereum's design. That's his latest thing because he did a lot of the coding for Ethereum. And so I like how he describes this like a layer zero, really abstract, highly sort of base layer protocol. And it's really
Mhm.
supposed to be interoperability among blockchains, kind of like a glue between blockchains so that they can all bridge together and sort of talk with each other. So I think that's interesting. Pantera Capital, as an institutional investor, went heavy on that before it started trading on public exchanges. And
Mhm.
so that thing has run like crazy up in price. Listed at about $3, and I believe it's trading at over 20.
Okay.
So it's taken some big moves, and
So
yeah, I
when you
mean,
say blockchains talking to each other, so like the Ethereum one would talk to Bitcoin, it'd be sort of like a seamless flow between the two, or are you envisioning a bunch of smaller individual blockchains that
well,
would be connected?
well, they use like what they call parachains, and so like they're using
Parachains.
their own like specific sort of model of
Hmm.
infrastructure for how this is going to happen. And so the difficult thing is that the best technology doesn't actually necessarily get like adopted. Like for
Hmm.
example, Bitcoin's always going to be slow and clunky, and it will never need to be fast. It was never intended to be. So I think that's kind of the thing there is that maybe there's another competitor that's going to do it better. So
Hmm.
it's really hard to say. It's about what people decide and vote for by buying it and using it. And therefore, other high quality technology, something like maybe Hedera Hashgraph in terms of its transaction speed, it can compete with stuff like EOS and other faster
Hmm.
blockchains. So HBAR uses acyclic graphs. They have this thing, the Gossip protocol, that will share their hash function state to the whole network. So they're basically going to communicate the global state to the entire network
Hmm.
with Gossip protocol. So it's not really like it's sort of like an innovation on blockchain and sort of a
Hmm.
new spin on it for scalability. So, but who knows how far out that'll actually be used. I also am interested in something like Flare networks because what they're doing is
Hmm.
taking Ripple and making it basically like Turing complete. They're building a Ethereum sort of base
Really?
layer on top of it.
Wow.
And it would sort of be interesting. It wouldn't be proof of work or stake. It would settle consensus like with the Ripple protocol, which I believe is Federated Byzantine Agreement. So um, there's stuff like that where you're seeing
Hmm.
you can actually build smart contracts onto chains that weren't supposed to have that. And I'm pretty sure that's being done with Bitcoin as well. And then I guess one other I would kind of name is Ocean Protocol for making data markets, because anybody who's a coder sort of appreciates the value of data sets and where
Hmm.
we're probably going with machine learning, all that sort of stuff. So in terms of ownership, sale, and trading of data, they're actually kind of making sort of data sets and data into almost like stock markets, and
Hmm.
those
Hmm.
become traded. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if people are interested in data, then as a value proposition, people are finding ways to capitalize on that. So none of this investment advice. I do hold positions in all of those, but those are just some ones that I think are interesting.
Hmm. There's definitely a lot happening. I mean, when I think about some of the hottest things in crypto now, it's more stuff that's, I guess, more user facing versus like the actual infrastructure that you're talking about, like blockchains being able to talk to each other. That's definitely revolutionary, honestly. So we have a lot of questions actually coming in, like a ton. So do you want to, let's see. Vishal asks, what do you think about Avalanche Network? I've never heard about that Avalanche Network.
Actually, I haven't heard about that myself, to be honest.
Okay. Vishal, we'll have to do some research. Okay, let's see. Mm, interesting question. In 2018, the bubble popped and uh, all the process dropped. Are we in a bubble now, or do you think the value of crypto is more stable this time since big companies like Tesla are investing? It's definitely, that's a great question. Very relevant.
Yeah, and I think in a nutshell, this time it's completely different. I don't think that for crypto we are in a bubble yet. I think it's starting to get there. Prices have definitely
Mhm.
taken off quite a lot, but this time it's institutions driving moves, not just retail investors. Like I think the market cap right now is at 1.44 trillion for the whole space,
Oh my
and
gosh. Wow.
that's up 5.28% in its market cap over the last 24 hours. So like if you annualize that
Oh
as
my
a rate of
gosh.
return, it's since it trades 365 days of the year,
Hmm.
we're talking about it growing at well over 10x over the next year at that clip. Um,
Hmm.
so I mean, money is basically sort of flooding into the space in a big way, and more companies are adding it to their balance sheets. S&P companies now. I think more sort of conventional institutions are going to start to come in, and there's some price evidence to kind of suggest that around 40 to 44,000 they're still buying. Um, so I think that institutional buying is a huge watershed for adoption, and that as we get more
Hmm.
regulatory clarity and legitimization with regulators, it's going to change the perceptions around Bitcoin, and crypto
Hmm.
dramatically. So I
So
basically
then,
think we have a lot more upside. Yeah.
what would you say would be the next watershed then? So you have retail investors and you have the institutional investors. Like, what really is the next step then? Like, is it using Bitcoin every day? But I know we've talked about how that's not really that sustainable. So, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that it's kind of about where we are in the big picture of people adopting it globally.
Hmm.
We were definitely not past 10 or 15% of where it could go with adoption
So
just a
still
few
pretty
months
low.
ago. Yeah, and so I think that
Hmm.
now we're looking at it in the big picture context. I mean, how many people in the world own crypto? Uh, it's
Probably not that much.
I think it's still something really niche, and we're probably
Yeah,
still a pretty fractional percentage. It's hard to actually, I think,
totally.
get a good sense of that. So I'd like to see some data that's more current after the last few months. But my
Hmm.
suspicion is that we just have a long way to go for adoption, and whichever one of these come out being survivors and actually being adopted and used are probably gonna just do some impressive things with where their prices might go. Because I see this very
Hmm.
much as kind of like the early days of uh, big tech, basically. Because
Yeah, I
these are
agree.
the disruptors. Google was the disruptor before, same with Apple, Microsoft, etc. So,
Hmm. Yeah, crypto is like a niche within this, like the larger tech niche, is sort of how I think about it. Okay, we have another question here. Do you think ETH will compete with Bitcoin as a store of value? And I think it's important to highlight as a store of value. So, what do you
yeah,
think about that?
no, I don't think it will, and I don't think it actually needs to. Like for one thing,
Hmm.
Ethereum has like a way bigger floating supply, and its supply is also theoretically infinite. Like you can create as much Ether as you want, and then the DAO hack that happened before sort of proved that they're willing to intervene and reverse course on their own,
Hmm.
tokenomics and monetary policies. So in that sense, Bitcoin actually was the opposite. They couldn't reach consensus, and that's a good thing in my view. Bitcoin is truly decentralized versus Ethereum. There's no foundation with oversight of it. You know,
No Bitcoin Foundation
we don't
for the
even know
Ethereum one.
who Satoshi is. I mean, it
Yeah.
really go
Whereas
after it.
Vitalik is like this god.
So I mean, it's just yeah, I don't think it needs to because they serve two totally different purposes. That would be like asking
Hmm.
if apples are going to compete with bananas. I just think it's like totally different.
Yeah.
And so the value proposition of Ethereum is not that it's a store of value. It's actually that it's like a fuel, utility
Hmm.
value, and that this network's going to become sort of ubiquitously used across the world. And if you think that's true, there's a value proposition, I guess, basically.
Hmm. Yeah. So I guess use Ethereum more to build applications on top of it. And you said like Bitcoin's sort of doing that with the smart contracts on top of Bitcoin, but I don't really see that becoming like a developer environment like Ethereum has become.
Yeah, I mean, Ethereum sort of like has been described by some people as bridging the gap for adoption, like facilitating
Mm.
adoption a lot quicker than would happen with Bitcoin, because eventually perhaps we get a robust enough infrastructure of code and developers around Bitcoin that we have good tools to build smart contracts on it, and it actually starts to work sort of like Ethereum.
Hmm.
But I mean, I don't think so because one, there's limitations to what Bitcoin can do based on its
Hmm.
inherent code infrastructure, and then
Yeah.
two,
The
it's
supply.
yeah, and then also
Hmm.
and just its parameters. Like Ethereum's fully Turing complete. I don't think Bitcoin is. So I think that you're gonna never
That's
be
an
able to
important
do
part.
some of the calculations. But I just think Bitcoin has a totally different value proposition. It really is intended to be purely a payment network and a store of values, a scarce digital asset. hard
Mhm.
asset. And Ethereum really is kind of like a different thing. And with Bitcoin, for that matter, like I know a lot of people ask, will it actually be a day-to-day medium of exchange in the future? Maybe through Lightning Network, but I would say ultimately no, and it
Mhm.
doesn't need to be. Like case in point, gold's been the best money available for 4,000 years until the creation of Bitcoin, but nobody exchanged it day to day. And that's part of
Mhm.
why gold certificates and silver coins circulated, to create liquidity. So Bitcoin does exactly what it's supposed to do as a medium, electronic medium of exchange and store of value, a scarce digital hard asset. And so to buy coffee with Bitcoin would be really ridiculous. It'd be like buying coffee with fractions of a gold coin.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
there's this idea called Gresham's law, which is basically that the bad money drives out the good out of circulation. And so, in other words, people are going to want to exchange or trade away the more inferior form of money while saving the more valuable one.
Mhm.
So for that
Mhm.
reason, I think Bitcoin's going to be hoarded away as a scarce store of value, while some other coin fills the role of payments day to day. And because it is, like as Raoul Pal has said, a pristine collateral asset. I know Michael Saylor said he's not selling any of his Bitcoin for 100 years. So
Nope, he was very adamant about that. He's
yeah,
like, "Why would I sell this?"
and the what wallets are doing, like most of the Bitcoin
Mhm.
is held, and right now there's actually a shortage of it in circulation, and it's being bought up quicker than it can really be mined or produced. So
Yeah, hence the crazy swings in price. Um, I had a comment to say. Oh, yeah. So, I agree because, like, if Bitcoin, or I guess you wouldn't see big institutional investors buying Ethereum, for example, like they're buying Bitcoin. So I think that really indicates sort of where they see the value going with that. Um, we did get a couple of questions about um, actually investing in cryptocurrencies. Um, two sort of related questions. So with crypto, I don't know how to value them and make an educated or data-driven decision. So do you have any thoughts on how to sort of like wrap your head around this when you're looking to invest?
yeah, well, I mean, there's different strategies that somebody could
Hmm.
use, and I mean, I personally kind of use a blend of a couple. I never ignore price completely because you don't want to. Well, I guess I don't want to ever overpay. Maybe somebody
Hmm.
does. Uh, yeah, I mean, I never want to overpay for anything just in the first place.
Hmm.
So I mean, relative to where prices have been trading on a chart, by looking at candlesticks and just doing some basic kind of technical analysis,
Hmm.
someone could get a sense of where maybe they want to be, getting in or out a little bit. And I know Binance Academy has a lot of free resources.
Yeah.
That's another good one I
Hmm.
forgot to mention. Uh,
CoinDesk has much stuff.
yeah, so that's one aspect of it. The other one is sort of looking at market cap of a project, because the market cap, obviously the smaller it is, the more room it has for growth, but then the more inherent risks there are of it never ever succeeding. And so I'll disclose that I have about 62 open crypto positions right now. And so most of the top coins you've heard of, I maybe own. I mean, and that's just because I realize that there's a high likelihood I'm going to be wrong on a lot of them. There might be problems,
Hmm.
might fail. I mean, I've lost 100% on ICOs that were exit scams. I've had some issues here or there where I picked a project at the wrong time and it just plummeted like
Hmm.
80%, and that can happen. So I basically tried to really get broad exposure to a lot of different things and base it on market cap, where you're looking at sort
Hmm.
of like the top 5 to 10 market cap, and realizing that's what's going to provide the most alpha, sort of or sorry, the most beta, pardon me, for the index. Like that's where the sort of index movement is going to come from. So when the big ones are cheap, I have tried to buy them and then sort of appreciate that capital takes a longer period of time to work its way down the chain into the smaller assets. And so you have a bit more time typically to get into those before they move versus the big ones. And that was my experience. So I guess there's that whole sort of aspect of market cap. And then the
Hmm.
other piece that's a little more tricky is evaluating, I guess, growth potential. Like what
Hmm.
kind of market is this addressing, what's its potential for growth, like what kind of a market share could it grab here for what it's trying to address. And that would be, I guess, the other way to evaluate something is like if we're having a coin that's I don't know what a good example would be, trying to disrupt oh god some existing industry, you could put a number on that. You would just basically
Mhm.
say, well, what are its competitors? How much have they grabbed of that market share? Could this do the same? And based on the supply of tokens kind of thing, what would that put its price at if X amount of people adopted it? So
Mhm.
I guess that's the other way to look at it, is kind of combining, you know, fundamentals in a traditional sense, some technical analysis, looking at perhaps, the potential for growth and disruptive growth. And then, I mean, the other one is sentiment, because sentiment really drives
Sentiment.
price, like at least
Mhm.
in the short term. Long term, I think that maybe things find their way to where they're supposed to be, like the garbage can for a lot of them. But basically, I think sentiment can do amazing things. And for those people who
Mhm.
were talking about Dogecoin, that's pure sentiment. That's I
Yep.
mean, I'm gonna just say it. Don't buy Doge. Just don't do it. Um,
It's all hype.
I mean, I don't own any. I have nothing wrong with it. I love the little dog, etc. But it's just it's risky business. So I prefer to
Mhm.
make my gambles smart gambles if possible.
That's really funny. Yeah, a lot of what you're saying does sound like more like just a traditional stock analysis, but also like with some technical analysis in it as well.
Well, and I would mention
Um,
I don't really trade them that much, just because if you
mhm.
do a lot of back testing and sort of digging into it, you'll see that it really isn't provable that you can outperform buy and hold in a bull cycle. Like if you buy everything cheap and then hang on to it, it's pretty hard to
Mhm.
outperform that as a trader getting in and out unless you sort of abuse leverage. So, which I really would say, for the majority of people should stay the heck away from, is excessive use of leverage. I mean, really
Yeah,
dangerous. Like
don't do that.
so yeah. Ultimately, yeah, that's kind of how I take it.
Mhm. Okay, awesome. That was very illuminating. I'm just like waiting for my IRA to start offering like an index fund in crypto coins or something.
Yeah, and I
That
also
would be very interesting.
I see one question I just want to address from Marlo from London. Hey, I see just the one about Bitcoin. Someone being describing it to you as a pyramid scheme. Yeah, and I mean, like, it's actually the opposite. Like, if anything, fiat currency, like our good old dollars, are a better description of a Ponzi scheme. Simply by virtue of where we're at right now, you have to keep putting more money into that system for it to keep going, basically. And then whoever is left holding the bag is going to get, well, basically destroyed once these bubbles all correct, because they essentially have to keep printing money right now. Like they have to keep issuing debt to keep the system going. And
Mhm.
eventually, if you believe in market cycles, that's going to have to, come to roost in some way, shape, or form, because, well, simply the debts can't be paid back. Um, Whereas, with Bitcoin, it's kind of different in terms of that you're incentivized to keep value in the network. Like it's kind
Mhm.
of the opposite. It's a strictly deflationary currency. So rather than having to put money in it to keep it propped up, it's kind of the opposite. So,
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this in one of the blog posts that I wrote. Um, Talking or referring back to just being able to print money. So I found this statistic that the U.S. Federal Reserve printed over 3 trillion new dollars in 2020 to combat the effects of COVID, which equated to about 20% of the total U.S. dollar money supply. And that's just sort of mind blowing that a government can just do that, and we sort of just are supposed to trust that. Whereas with Bitcoin, you can't really do that.
well,
You
that
know,
was
so
40% of all the U.S. dollars ever printed were basically
mhm,
printed in 2020, and that was 21%
yeah,
of the base currency supply for the world's reserve
that's
currency.
crazy. Yeah, so you can't do that with Bitcoin, right? Like that's just,
Yeah,
as
and
you were saying, deflationary sort of currency.
well, and we would have seen some significant like hyperinflation or something like that, but with the economies locked down, the money velocities bottomed out. And guys like Jim Rickards have pointed this out, that if the economies weren't locked down, sure, perhaps we'd be seeing runaway inflation, but they
Mhm.
totally stopped the money flowing through the economy. So you're not going to see inflation pick up despite the rampant printing. So it's
Okay, that
really,
makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Kresna asked a question I just want to quickly address. Is there any chance Codecademy would create blockchain dev career path in the future, like DApp or smart contract using Solidity or Substrate or anything else? I'm not sure if they will. That's something I can ask the Codecademy team that I talk with. But I just want to point out they do have a really great course called Building Blockchain Using Python. It's just a one-off course. It's not a career path. It's just a pro course. But I did it and I thought it was great because the first part just goes over sort of the basics of blockchain, and then the second part is actually simulating one in Python. So Kresna, just wanted to point that out for you. Hopefully they do a Solidity course in the future because I'd be down and interest is there. So yeah, just
And
wanted to say
also
that.
should point out you can do a lot with JavaScript. Like
Yes.
you can do a lot of like DApp development with JavaScript.
Can you, so like if I was to write a smart contract in Ethereum, could I write it in JavaScript or does it have to be in Solidity? Because I'm not sure.
I think it depends because I know Ethereum has different suites for developers, and so
True. You can like choose
I,
from or
I think
whatever.
there might be one that allows you to do it in JavaScript. I forget what it's called. They're all named after foods and stuff. Seems to be a
Nice.
trend, like DeFi projects. So.
I love that. Okay, so yeah, and then I know Coursera and I think Udemy has a Solidity course. So yeah, just I would check those out. Okay, looks like we have a bunch of other questions. Let's see. Oh, this one's interesting. With gaming and sports on the rise, what do you currently see happening in the gaming related crypto scenes? NFTs are like the first thing that come to mind for this
Yeah,
question.
well, glad someone mentioned that because I think that's kind of
Yeah.
like going to be one of the biggest frontiers where it starts to unlock value and really disrupt stuff is
Hmm.
digital economies existing, like i.e. video games. And so, yeah, I mean, like there's a ton of locked up money in video games, and NFTs are probably going to start to unlock that. And some of those projects out there that, are doing stuff like allowing you to take NFTs and create them from their token and then take them
Hmm.
back from the token so that we can basically, get fungibility with the
Hmm.
digital money that's in those ecosystems and start to make items that have basically real provenance and tradable value.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's kind of the new frontier on that, and I know that that's making its way into games like Minecraft and some of these other VR sort of worlds. And VR is going to be obviously a big trend that keeps going along with the augmented
Hmm.
reality kind of stuff too. So
Yep.
I see this playing into it huge. Like there's also stuff out right now, like in beta version. There's one I have the beta of called Light Night, and it's basically a first-person shooter where you can get micropayments from Lightning Network, so that like every time you're shooting somebody, you're getting like paid. So that's really
What?
cool. Yeah, so I think
Okay.
they're going to integrate real-time payments into
Uh-huh.
games so that like you're actually getting real incentive and rewards. And
Hmm.
gaming's already a big money industry. It's esports is surpassing traditional sports. Like more people watch Fortnite than like NFL and stuff like that now. So
Really? Oh, I had no idea, but I'm not
I think
surprised
NFL. I know
considering.
several major American sports leagues, like the
Yeah.
Fortnite, tournament viewerships are higher. So like video games are, I think, going to be a huge one. Plus, gamers are the kind of people who want to adopt these kinds of things anyways and are more comfortable with
Hmm.
the idea of digital value. So I think
Yeah.
that's a big idea. And then the other one is just the whole NFT marketplace and how that's going to disrupt stuff like especially for art because we've recently
Yes.
seen like things like piece of digital real estate. I think it was like Axie Infinity or something like that in that world.
Hmm.
Like a piece of digital real estate just sold for like it was over $1 million US. It was like 1.2 million or something worth of
For digital
Ethereum.
real estate.
Yeah, for a
Wow.
plot of land, for a plot of digital land, and then like so we're seeing digital real estate sell for more than physical real estate. I know
Hmm.
that a cyberpunk like little pixel NFT art thing went for like 800,000 US or something like that. And then some
Damn.
other piece of digital art recently sold for maybe like
Hmm.
600,000 US. So we're seeing these things sell for just like crazy prices, and it
Hmm.
reminds me of crypto kitties, right? And that actually,
Original NFT.
yeah, that brings me to my like other point, which is like you're going to get the like provenance aspect. So you can tokenize digital art, but you can also tokenize physical art and link it to a digital token. And so like one
Hmm.
project that's cool is called Crypto Kaiju, and this little guy here. So there's a
Wait, was that an NFT that is there an NFT backing that?
yeah, because right here he's got the
Oh, oh
chip.
my God, that's so cool.
So it's a tamper-proof chip.
Wow.
And he's basically a little physical
No way.
representation of a crypto kitty. And
Wow.
that ties him to his digital identity. So you get like an NFT that's for that guy's specific character, with
Hmm.
all of his provenance traits, and there's like rare variations and stuff. And then you get an actual CryptoKitty that comes with them as well that you could swap
That's
and breed.
awesome.
So I mean, like that kind of stuff is now catching on. So yeah,
Hmm.
Crypto Kaiju is probably the first project I believe that ever did that on a public blockchain. So you're going to see, I think, that start to happen where you're going to tokenize everything from paintings to real estate to
Hmm.
yeah, you
So
name it.
I guess sort of a related question to that my question was, well, if I want to buy a piece of physical art and someone pays me through the blockchain and they get an NFT for it, how can they ensure that I actually send that piece of art to them? Like how would that work where you're combining the digital and the physical?
Yeah, and I think that's where some people are doing work on marketplaces like OpenSea is one, and then Rarible
Okay.
is like another
Hmm.
popular, where people sell things like these kaijus as well as digital art and other stuff like that. So
Hmm.
basically, I think that people are building platform interfaces that sort of use a smart contract more likely than not to get around that trust aspect of making the swap.
True. Okay,
Yeah.
so it is written in a contract, so there's performance obligation then.
Because I'm sure
Okay.
you could have it so that you like escrow the money on a contract, and then
True.
somebody
Okay.
meets their obligations of delivery, then it would release the funds or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But you would have a lot of different ways you could actually program it to make it happen.
Implement it. Okay, that actually helps a lot because in my mind, I'm like, what's preventing someone from just not sending the piece of art, if they bought it? So
And then also with a physical correspondent item, it would be incomplete. Like if you only had one piece, that would be like, just like only having one piece of the collectible and not the other. And so
true.
half a product isn't really going to fetch the same price. And then it also
Hmm.
gives people good indication it's stolen.
Yeah, definitely an awesome area. It just reminds me of like, the metaverse, like it's happening. And I think NFTs are going to be a big part of that. So, all right, we've got a lot of other questions. Let's see. Vishal asked another question around NFTs. Would you be buying an NFT to resell for a profit? I think that just depends what your intentions are, right? Like you could do that.
Yeah, I think everybody has different motivations for why they make purchases. Like people
Hmm.
are purpose-driven creatures, so I think why I'm buying this thing. For example, like I bought some stuff just because I love it and just makes me happy to look at, and don't ever
Yeah.
want to really sell it. If someone said, "Hey, I'll give you 20
Good
grand," I'd be like, "Okay,
guy.
sure, sounds good." But
Uh-huh.
it's one of those things where maybe that's my motivation. Maybe somebody else buys it because they're a serious discerning collector who really knows what they're doing and has an eye for fine
Hmm.
art or something, and they know exactly what it's worth. But I think that's the great thing is it opens up different marketplaces with different market
Hmm.
participants, and that's part of the whole sort of democratization of finance in different asset classes, like even for artists especially.
Hmm.
I heard that somebody on Rarible made something like, I don't know, close to 30,000 US worth of Ethereum over a 24-hour period selling their art. And so, I mean, like for,
That's
for artists,
amazing.
this is crazy because it'll unlock a lot of value. I mean, I have an artist in the family, and like she's starting to go towards digital art because with all the
Yeah.
lockdowns and stuff, you're like, well,
Hmm.
the adoption of blockchain is kind of a no-brainer, right? Where are you going to get your
Hmm.
audience? So
That is great. Yeah. I mean, somebody told me that even if you're a writer, you can sell an NFT of your work. So someone actually has like their own like copyrighted copy of something, and you could do that for any sort of art. It doesn't just have to be like a digital painting or something, like anything. So that definitely a lot of innovation happening in that space and potential.
yeah, and it
Victor did.
fractionalizes things too. I just want to point out as well, just like with the Bitcoin
Mhm.
thing, how you can buy just little pieces of it. Same sort of deal. Like
True.
I think recently they took a piece of art. I think it was an Andy Warhol or something, and
Hmm.
they split it up into little shares. And so that's a new trend that's
Really?
emerging. Is sort of like
Uh-huh.
how we have crowdfunding marketplaces. You can buy
Hmm.
fractional pieces of other stuff. So maybe like I own like a little piece of some fancy collectible or high value art piece or something. So
Hmm.
that allows you to get out of these funds where only really rich people basically can get into them. So
Yeah, exactly. That's a great feature to point out that you don't just have to go all in or nothing. Like you can take a smaller risk or whatever you can afford to put up for it. So that's great. Victor did ask a question for a newbie in the crypto world. Would you invest most of your capital in Bitcoin or diversify your wallet? That's sort of like investing advice. So I'm not sure if you want to. answer
Yeah,
that
I
question?
can't think of anybody like personal advice for them and what they think is best,
Hmm.
but I can say that what I've done is I've personally diversified pretty heavily, but I've also weighted my sort of core positions with a little more conviction. So the things I
Hmm.
believe in a little more, I tend to, get behind a little bit more with some more money if I can. But I've also
Yeah.
been, coming from where most retail investors have been coming from, which is, not exactly rolling in cash. Like I built my positions out of necessity over a fairly long time with small chunks of money, and I mean, I think
Hmm.
that a lot of people have to do that out of necessity. So maybe it's a good safeguard. I don't know.
Yep. I think we have time for one more question. And Fede, his question actually sort of goes into a question I was curious about regulation, compliance, and governments. And I know you and I had talked before about how regulation in Canada was not as strict as regulation in the United States, for example. So could you talk a little bit about that? And also, Fede asked, where do you see governments moving from today to, say, 5 years from now in terms of crypto regulation?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to say because it'll vary government by government, but is a trend. I
Hmm.
think they're going to have to adopt it. I think it's kind of at this point futile to sort of fight it. When I hear stuff
Hmm.
like India talking about banning it, I just think they're going to get left behind if they make that decision, and they're just going to
China
hurt.
banning it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
they're just going to hurt their own citizens basically, and their own
Hmm.
domestic economies. So I think that's foolish. And like on Real Vision Crypto, like Anthony Pompliano had a great discussion with Mike Green about sort of Bitcoin, back and forth. Mike Green is really kind of not a proponent of Bitcoin, and this idea that it's challenging like the United States. And so there's this narrative that's a totally fake narrative that like Bitcoin is a threat to governments or challenging them or something. I think that's totally untrue. If it threatens anybody, I'd say it's central banks, and not
Mm.
necessarily threatens them existentially. It just threatens their monopoly on control, which
Yeah,
isn't necessarily a bad thing in my view. So
agreed.
I think that going forward, they're going to have to adopt it. And I mean, an interesting thing that happened was Janet Yellen coming out and talking about all this stuff about Bitcoin being for criminal activity, and then coming out shortly thereafter and elaborating to kind of almost recant her previous words, but just clarify that, well, there is potential. And now the narrative she's pushing is, well, there's a lot of potential in this technology, but just not
Hmm.
the way it's being used, kind of thing. And that's also total nonsense and can be proven with on-chain analytics and data.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think going forward, it's interesting because, like I said, there's two narratives. One is sort of, I think, the narrative that's being fed to the general public, and the other one is sort of the truth. And the truth of it, from what I've been able to dig out, is that regulators are trying to understand it. They're probably the strictest in the United States, in my view, just because the United States
Hmm.
is the world's reserve currency, and so
Yeah.
puts them in a sensitive position due to their domestic economic interests. I would say that most regulators globally are probably warming up to it. I know that there's a lot of lobby starting to form behind it, and the thing people need to understand about institutional money is that like we basically have like vanguards of the network now, like
Hmm.
Square and
It's a great point.
PayPal and like
Yeah,
MicroStrategy, like
true.
these guys in their war chests and of money and their connections and stuff are basically now working on our side. And so
Hmm.
that lobby is going to be stronger. We're going to basically see, I think a lot of interesting things going forward in terms of regulators being, persuaded to maybe see it a little bit differently. And I know that a lot of regulators themselves are pretty pro crypto because they see how it's actually a positive technology with good potential. And I think that they do actually have the interest of safety at heart for people. Like they're not, all totally draconian and ridiculous. I know a lot of them are, and I'm pretty hard on them. But I think a lot of them are trying to just do a good job and keep people safe. And so I think going forward that we're going to see, a lot of institutional adoption legitimize it, big money propel it forward, and sort of public, widespread social outcry and acceptance for this happen.
Hmm.
Because like in Nigeria, we just saw them try to, come down and ban stuff related to cryptocurrency, and people just switched to peer-to-peer exchanges and said like, we're not going to let this stop us.
Hmm.
So
It's gonna happen anyway.
yeah, I mean, just like in
Mhm.
China, the government ban didn't stop it. And so I think at this point, people worrying about a ban are maybe just losing sleep for no reason. Like, I think that the only way we're going to see like some sort of a restriction on ownership of an asset like Bitcoin would be if it ever got way too big and powerful, like hyper Bitcoinization stuff. And I don't necessarily know if that'll happen or if it needs to happen. Like, I think by the time, Bitcoin is big enough for us to be seriously considering those questions, it's going to be, $500,000 plus a coin kind of thing.
Wow.
So by the time we get there, I'll say, okay, I'll worry about it then, because $500,000 a coin as a little retail investor, I'll be feeling a little bit different, hopefully. So.
Yeah. Wow, that's definitely great insight and considerations. So with that, we only have 3 minutes left. This has been an absolutely amazing conversation, great questions. And Brendan, I'm sure we could talk for like 5 more hours, if not more, about this stuff. So
yeah, there's a lot to cover
massive
right
thank
now.
you. There's so much, which is why, joining stuff like Phoenix Crypto is really great. For everyone who is here right now, as promised, this is the special 20% off pro discount code. If any of you want to try out Codecademy Pro, definitely I would try it. The discount code here is chapter-member. So if you're thinking about doing it, I would say, use this code and try it out for a bit, because I've used it. I've completed almost 3 courses now, currently on Git. And it's fabulous, especially if you're a beginner coder. So yeah, just wanted to plug that real quickly and also put it in the chat here. And yeah, this has been so great. And again, thank you to everyone for attending, and a massive thank you to Brendan. You are so knowledgeable about all of this, and everyone, I'm sure, benefited from your insights. So yeah, thanks. Use Code Academy Pro and you love it. Agreed. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I'll be sending out a email or a newsletter, just sort of distilling everything. And definitely check out this event page in like a couple hours, because we'll have a recording of this session up if you want to share it with anyone. And yeah, if you enjoyed Phoenix Crypto, please check us out. Our next meetup is in 2 weeks. It's more of a chill coffee and code session. So it's more community building. We can actually talk to each other and get to know each other. And then, yeah, exciting programming for March as well. So thanks, Brendan. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.